Hello! As you might remember, from a fairly recent video, I have bought a new spinning wheel, Majacraft Suzie, who is said to be one of the Rolls Royces of spinning wheels and especially well equipped to spin ultrafine yarns. I have been calling this wheel, which is my very first wheel, my Toika Irene, my thin spinning queen. I think it is time for a spin-off. Which of these two wheels spins the finest yarn? I call Bernadette, the Toika Irene, my thin spinning queen because this is what I have already achieved on her. Yeah, so I know she spins fine. You can go really fine on her. And coincidentally, this is the most expensive wheel I have ever bought, and this is also the cheapest wheel that I have ever bought. So the question of this video also kind of is, do you need expensive tools and materials to achieve extraordinary results? I think the answer is already no, because this is already achieved. But I want to see which one of those does it best. Place your bets now, ladies and gentlemen. On each of the wheels I will spin one of these Kempisch Heideschaap nests. I chose Kempisch Heideschaap because I have experienced in the past that this is a fiber that wants to draft really fine. It's only one nest, but I'm going to attempt to make a 2-ply yarn out of it. Ambitious, I know. I'm also only going to use the wheel as they are, the tools as they are. For I have a special bobbin made by Jan Zandbelt, who is like the champion in spinning fine yarns, for Bernadette. I am not going to use the extra special bobbin. Nope. Regular bobbins is what I'll use, just to even the playing field with the Majacraft. So those were the rules. One nest per wheel, only using the tools that the wheel already naturally has. A 2-ply yarn, and at the end we will measure and weigh and see with whom the finest yarn is produced. I will explain this background next week, but before we dive into this competition, there have been requests that I share some of the golden nuggets of knowledge that I got during the thin spinning masterclass that I followed last July. And I think I can boil it down to a holy trinity being speed, weight and tension. Firstly, speed. You want to spin thin, so this is going to need a lot of twist. That is just, kind of basic spinning knowledge. Thin yarns need a lot more twist than thick yarns do. Now, to get a lot of speed, there mustn't be a lot of weight. And there also mustn't be a lot of tension. Jan Zandbelt himself makes these bobbins, and I've got one for Bernadette the Toika Irene. This is made out of cardboard. It is super lightweight. Your wheel still needs to be able to take up the yarn, but actually only just barely. What I've also learned during that masterclass is to get that perfect combination, that holy trinity of speed, weight and tension. You want to be looking at a Scotch tension wheel or a double drive wheel, because with an Irish tension wheel or a bobbin led wheel, there just is a little bit too much torque, too much pull on the bobbin, on the yarn. And that is actually what you want to avoid, like really harsh pulls on the yarn that you are currently spinning. In either phase of the making of the yarn is both the spinning of the singles and the plying. Preferably you'd have a plying setup, which makes it so that the yarn goes more smoothly. I am, and I say this in most cases, not an expert, not a teacher, so take all of this with as much salt as you want, but that is what I got from that masterclass. The Holy Trinity is, it's got to be speedy, a lot of twists. There needs to be almost no tension, and your tools better be lightweight. Now this is of course for competition grade fine yarns, like if you want to spin sewing thread or embroidery thread thin yarns. If you want to spin thread, in other words. And why would you do that? Well, maybe just because competitions are fun. It's sometimes also great to challenge yourself, and you know, there is a thing called bragging rights. I'm starting, as you can see, with Bernadette, just because she's the oldest, she gets right of way. I have turned her tension so far down as so that it will just pick up the yarn and pull it in, but not have such a pull that the really fine yarn will break while I am spinning it. So I spun up the first half of that little fluff. As you can see, I'm going to turn around a little bit. I've only used the first 2 hooks of my flyer because Bernadette actually only has 2 bobbins, and if I want to ply afterwards, well, yes, I need to do some interesting things. So I'm going to put the second single on the back side of the bobbin over here, and then we'll ply, which is of course the most nail-biting part, to see that, well, yes, I have been spinning very thin. Let me show you. But have I been spinning sturdy enough that this can also be plied? But of course, before we can test that, let's make a second ply. I don't know about you, but the chitter chatter of this double drive wheel always makes me happy. It's just such a happy sound. The choice for a black skirt today was also very strategic, very planned, with this little contest in mind, because it works as a really neat contrast layer for me to actually see what I'm doing with these very fine fibers and this very fine yarn. If I were wearing a light colored skirt today, that would have been a lot more difficult. And now for the moment of truth. Can I ply this yarn, which, I mean, my camera has difficulty focusing on it. Can I ply it? Is it sturdy enough? There's been a couple of times where it almost felt like something snapped between my fingers. Oh, I've got another card cue. And that's such a terrifying feeling right now. I don't want it to snap. I want a nice long meterage of this yarn, this very, very thin yarn. I think I'm almost through most of it, and it hasn't snapped, so yay for
adding enough twist. And also not adding too much twist. Especially with yarns like this, it's really a fine balance. Ideally, also now during plying, I should have like a continuous flow of yarn all of the time, which I'm not having, so that is why all the curly cues are appearing, because the yarn gets an opportunity to ply back on itself. I don't know what happened right now. It seems like my yarn is twisting in opposite directions on the bobbin. That's weird. Anyway, as I was saying, when plying such a fine yarn, ideally it's a continuous flow so that you don't have to pull and there is less chance at snapping. But I am not working in ideal conditions, that is clear.
This yarn is thin. That's a fact. That's a thing you can't deny. However, how thin is it? And if I am going to spin another yarn, how am I going to compare this with another yarn? Just like they would in official contests, of course, we are going to determine the meters per gram of this thing. Right now, I can say that this little schneck is 23.8 meters. 1.24, please pick a number. You're going to stay at 1.24, okay? Yeah. Are you? Are you? What? How is there, like, adding weight? I'm just going to say 1.2 grams. So this would be 19.8 meters per gram. I've put my drive band on the smallest of whirls, and as you can see from the grooves worn into the whirl, this one that hasn't been used much in the past. I also, as I said in my previous video, cleaned the wheel so that we get smooth as spinning once more. However, I don't have the specific thin spinning flyer for my Majacraft. This is the regular Delta orifice flyer. I hope this doesn't give my Toika an unfair advantage. Oh man, she fast! Woo! Yeah, as you can see, my yarn broke. So, was I going a little bit too fast? Probably. I think a very important part of this spinning thin thing is confidence, and I was getting a little overconfident. Just like a little overconfident. That is our first half on the Majacraft. I must say that my yarn broke at minimum 6 times. So while I kind of have a feeling that maybe I was spinning thinner because this wheel is so fast, I was also snapping my yarn. That's also like a thing that I want to take into comparison. Like maybe in the end this yarn is thinner by quite a large margin than the one I spun on my Toika, but the spinning on my Toika thus far was much more enjoyable. Like, not the act itself, like I do, as I have said in the previous video, really enjoy the movement of the double treadle wheel, but the yarn snapping 6 times, especially at this size, this thinness of yarn, not enjoyable. It's very hard to see visually, and that gives you a pointer to what the conclusion to this video is. The difference is really small. So, as I have said before, the one that I spun on my Toika Irene, the cheapest of my wheels, the first of my wheels, was about 20 meters per gram. This one that I just spun on the Majacraft Suzie Pro is about 21 meters per gram. So fairly close in thinness, I would say. This one, however, feels more brittle. I had so much more issues with my yarn snapping during all of the processes. During spinning the singles, during plying, during taking it off the bobbin on my niddy noddy. It broke, it snapped, which to me tells me that there is more potential in the Majacraft to go even thinner than I am currently able and comfortable to go. So she speeds fast, and I really had to control my treadling to be really slow and soft so that I didn't continually snap the yarn that I was spinning. Would this be helped with a different fiber? Probably. Oftentimes, when people organize such thin spinning competitions, they advise you to use Polworth or Cormo and not Kempisch Heideschaap, because all in all considered, even though it wants to spin fine, it still is a medium breed. Now, all things considered, how thin is 20 meters per gram? It's relatively thin. As you can see, I could thread this through a sewing needle and embroider with it. It's a little bit thicker than like sewing thread. That's where we're at. However, when I compare my results to the results of last year's thin spinning competition in the Netherlands, I would place 7th with the one with the Majacraft, because that's the thinnest, so 21 meters per grams. 7th. This means that there is so much more room for improvement. And yeah, when you look at the numbers of Master Jan Zandbelt himself, I am so of being a thin spinning competitor. I think we can conclude with an ages-old Flemish saying, "Het ligt aan het manneke, niet aan het penneke." And to translate this to our circumstances, it will be, it's the spinner, not a spinning wheel. While this Majacraft probably has a lot more potential for spinning thin than the Toika does, the yarn that I am able to spin fine is better on this wheel, because I think this is about as fine as I am comfortable and able to go, and then this one makes the better yarn. There is not as much snapping for me. For the qualities, for the abilities that I have, she still is the thin spinning queen, because this was a little bit frustrating to me. However, looking at the potential, as I said before, if I practice a lot more and maybe use a different fiber, then I think I could get a thinner yarn with this one. However, I think we should put that to the test, because maybe if I have more practice and use a different fiber, this one also can spin thinner. So maybe, yeah, it's the spinner, not the spinning wheel, is the only conclusion I can come to, because we don't know. There's so much variable still. And what we see here is that it's my yarn that I made on these tools is very alike. However, this one is a better yarn. It feels softer. This is brittle and will break, and has broken. I honestly had expected much more of a difference in the length of this yarn, but I'm also glad that there isn't. Like, it does show you can get amazing results with wheels that you buy secondhand for literally 25 euros. This is nice, this is fancy. If you want one, get one, but it doesn't necessarily make your spinning better, or not immediately, just because it is a tool. I hope that makes sense. And is it all interesting? And anyway, if you like these kind of fiber shenanigans, then maybe you could like, comment or subscribe. But of course, that is all up to you. And as for me, I will see you in a next video. But before we do that, maybe you could take a look at some more spinning shenanigans. Bye! And now to get up.